Hi everyone, and welcome to the Unsolved Society. Today we'll be discussing the bizarre disappearance of Anthonette Cayedito, a little girl who was kidnapped in 1986 after answering her front door after a series of knocks at 3 a.m. Before we jump in, I'd just like to dedicate this video to Anthonette and her family. We hope that the continued coverage of her case will bring those long-awaited answers that so many are desperate for. In 1986, Anthonette Cayedito was a 9-year-old girl living in Gallup, New Mexico, with her mother and her 2 sisters. She was described by people who knew her as wise beyond her years, which isn't a phrase that you hear used to describe a 9-year-old very often. She grew up quickly, and by the time she was only 6 years old, she was cooking and doing laundry for her younger siblings. She was an above-average student who loved music and enjoyed weekly Bible study. On Sunday, April 6, 1986, Anthonette's mother, Penny, got a babysitter for her 3 young daughters and went out for a night on the town with some friends to a local bar called the Talk of the Town. When Penny returned around midnight, she sent the babysitter home and the 3 young girls stayed awake with their mother. Now, there's varying accounts of what happened next. Some reports say that Penny stayed up with the 3 girls for the next few hours before falling asleep. Others say Penny fell asleep when she got home while the girls stayed up by themselves. Regardless, the girls and their mom would end up going to bed in Penny's room all together. At some point, Anthonette and her younger sister Sadie heard a knock coming from the front door. The 2 girls didn't recognize the man at the front door, so they ignored him and they returned to bed. According to Sadie, she's unsure of how much time passed, but there was another knock on the front door. Anthonette, being the mature older sister that she was and being used to stepping into that head of household role, would get up by herself to answer the door. But she would never return. The next morning, Penny woke up around 7 a.m. to get the girls ready for Bible school. She would discover that Anthonette was missing, but there are reports that she possibly thought that she was out looking for a neighbor's missing dog. Other reports have no mention of that detail and actually deny it. Either way, Penny began searching for her daughter with the help of neighbors, and they would have no luck. At approximately 11 a.m., Penny contacted the Gallup police, but she was told she would need to wait another 8 hours to report her daughter missing. Unfortunately, this wasn't an era before Amber Alerts. An elderly neighbor would come forward to law enforcement to let them know that she saw an older model brown van outside of the Cayedito home at approximately 6:30 to 7 a.m. that morning. She recalls that the man got out of the vehicle and approached the home. However, she wasn't able to offer any more detail than that. According to neighbors, it wasn't unusual to see different people coming and going, so it was easy for the elderly woman to not pay close attention to the person's identity. When questioned, both parents of Anthonette, including her father Larry, did not know anyone who drove a brown van. The next known update in this case would come around 7 months later after she was last seen. Although there's varying reports on that as well. Some say 7 months, some say a year. Either way, the Gallup Police Department received a phone call from a young girl claiming to be Anthonette. The young girl can be heard saying that she is Anthonette Cayedito and that she is in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Once the dispatcher asks where in Albuquerque she is located, you can hear an unknown voice say, "Who said you can use the phone?" The young girl begins to cry, and the call ends. I'll go ahead and play a portion of that 911 call now. Please be advised that this might be disturbing to some viewers. If you would rather not hear the call, just skip ahead 30 seconds or so in this video.
Hello? I'm Anthonette Cayedito. Okay, whereabouts in Albuquerque? Who said you could use a phone? Hello? Anthonette, where are you?
As you can imagine, the speculation surrounding this call is plentiful. Many question whether this was even Anthonette to begin with. Her mother, Penny, however, was insistent that this was her daughter. She was quoted as saying, "I listened to the tape over and over and over, and by the way she says her last name and the way that she screamed sent chills all over my body. A mother knows, and I know that was her," quote unquote. Over the following years, there would be several alleged sightings of Anthonette, one of the most notable being in 1991. The FBI had created age-progressed photos of her and how she would have looked at 14 years old. the age she would have been in 1991. After being widely distributed, a waitress in Carson City, Nevada, reported to police that she may have had a possible encounter with Anthonette while at work. She reported that an ungroomed, unkempt male and female couple, along with a teenage girl who resembled Anthonette, had come into the diner where she worked. She thought the behavior of the girl was odd. She seemed to be repeatedly and deliberately dropping her fork. When the waitress would attempt to help and pick up the fork, the girl would squeeze her hand, in a possible attempt to signal she needed help from the waitress. They would finish their meal, and some time passed before the waitress was able to go back and bust the table. When she did, she found a note under the girl's plate that said, "Help me and call police." Like the phone call incident, the waitress and her accounts have drawn much speculation. Some question the authenticity of the waitress's story. What do you think of these two incidents? Do you believe that it was really Anthonette that made that phone call? And do you think that the waitress's story was an actual sighting or a red herring? Let me know in the comments below. The attention from the phone call to the Gallup Police Department in the diner incident prompted law enforcement to dig deeper into the case and re-interview any family or friends that they did before. Anthonette's younger sister, Wendy, was among those interviews, and she came forward with alarming information. Wendy claimed that the night her older sister disappeared, she witnessed her abduction. She says that when the second knock came from the front door, she followed Anthonette. And when she asked who was there, a man answered and said it was Uncle Joe, quote unquote. This seemed to lower Anthonette's inhibitions, so she opened the door. According to Wendy, two men grabbed Anthonette, and she tried to fight back by kicking and screaming. When police asked Wendy why she didn't speak up before, she stated that she didn't want to upset her mother, quote unquote. As far as the Uncle Joe that Wendy claimed to have heard, they actually did have an Uncle Joe, but he was cleared by law enforcement of any involvement. The most recent update in the case would come in 2023. Anthonette's younger sister Sadie appeared on a show called Beyond the Case in a video titled Disappeared in Darkness, The Disappearance of Anthonette Cayedito on the Crystal Gutierrez TV YouTube channel. Go check it out. I put a link in the video sources. It's very informative and I highly recommend it. Sadie revealed shocking new details about the night Anthonette went missing. When Penny, Anthonette's mother, was getting ready to go out that evening, a man by the name of Emo showed up with flowers and a gift for Anthonette. He even had her sit on his lap when Penny had left the room. Penny had been introduced to Emo by her best friend Ronald and had never been to their house without him before, making this visit odd. Penny had previously admitted to investigators that Emo, a grown man, had brought flowers to her daughter on 3 separate occasions in the days before her disappearance. She only admitted this detail when a family member brought it up in front of police. Sadie claims that after Anthonette went missing, neither Emo nor Ronald, Penny's best friend, ever spoke to Penny again. Emo was given a polygraph test, but the results were never made public. Next, Sadie recalls that after being put to bed that night, there was a knock at the door, but it wasn't the Uncle Joe that her sister Wendy previously talked about. Instead, it was a man by the name of Roger, who had actually gotten in an argument with their mother, Penny Cayedito, earlier that evening at the bar. Police had interviewed Roger, and he claimed that when there was no answer at the door, he left and he stayed at a friend's house that night. The friends whose house he stayed at were able to back up his alibi. It was also revealed that in 1994, the FBI re-interviewed Penny Cayedito. This time, when asked about the sequence of knocks on the door that night, she said, "I told her, Anthonette, to go ahead and answer it. I laid there for a period of time, maybe 30 minutes, and Anthonette never came back," which is different than her previous story that she woke up at 7 a.m. and noticed her daughter was gone. When investigators probed Penny about her involvement with her daughter's disappearance, she stated, "What if I told you Emo and I did this? Would we both go to prison?" quote unquote. She actually went on to confess that when Emo and Ronald came over one day, she began to vent about how Anthonette was becoming a handful, but she wanted a better life for her. So Emo was the one to suggest that he take her off her hands. Unfortunately, it's still unknown why the FBI never arrested Penny. She would later pass away in 1999. So what's the status of Anthonette's case today? Unfortunately, law enforcement hasn't released any new updates. However, there is a large community motivated to find answers about what really happened to Anthonette that night. Many speculate that Penny, Anthonette's mother, was more involved than she let on. If that's true, unfortunately, Penny went to the grave without information. If you or anyone you know has information about the whereabouts of Anthonette Cayedito, please contact the Gallup Police Department at area code 505 863 9365. If you like this video, please like and subscribe or turn on notifications if that's your thing. I'll see you solvers in the next video. Bye.